In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at the techniques involved with creating lithophanes. Lithophanes is a technique dating back to the 1800s where artwork was etched or moulded into very thin translucent porcelain. When backlit, produced a grayscale image. It worked by having more material left in areas where that part of the image was intended to be darker, and lighter areas with less material allowing more light through. And in this tutorial, we're going to show you how to create these using the software and a CNC machine. So to begin, I'm just going to go ahead and close this down, and we're going to open a new file. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a new file here, and we're going to have a single-sided job, and we're going to have a width of 8 inches and a height of 10 inches. And we're going to imagine that we're working with corian, so that normally comes in a 1/4 inch size material. So I'm just going to put in 0.25 there, and we are going to be working in inches. Now I'm going to specify the Z0 position to be off the material surface, and the XY datum position, I'm just going to, for the design side, I'm going to set that to be in the center. The modeling resolution I'm going to set to very high, as this will allow us to have greater detail. And for the appearance, I'm going to choose a solid color, and from the solid color selection, I'm going to choose gray -25%, like so. And then once we've got those options selected, simply press OK. And this will bring us into our working area. Now we need to import an image to start creating our lithophane. Now there are two ways currently which enable us to actually import an image into the software. Now the first one is in the file operations, where it allows us to import a bitmap, and the second option is within the modeling tab, which is this option here, which says to create a component from selected or imported bitmap. Now if we're going to use the image for creating a 3D model or a 3D relief, which is what we're going to be doing while we're creating a lithophane, we need to use this option here, as this option will allow us to get greater detail information from the images that we're selecting. Now you may have noticed that it does ask for an image to be selected already. As you can see there, it says create a component from selected or imported bitmap, but if we don't have one selected and we click on it, it will open up the open dialog box for us, and all we need to do then is navigate through our tutorials files or selecting any image that we wish to create a lithophane of, and we just simply select the charliechaplin.jpg and simply press open, and that will then open the image into the software for us. And if we tile the windows vertically, you'll notice that we now have also a 3D representation of that image. Now what I'm going to do to begin with is just center this in the center of our work area. Now we can do this in a couple of ways. We can either utilize these options here underneath the align selected objects, or we can press F9 on the keyboard and that will automatically place that in the center for us. Now one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to go ahead and resize this image, as I want it to be larger than it currently is. So how we can do that is we can simply go to the set selected object size, and with link XY enabled, all I'm going to do is just set the width to 6.5 inches, and you'll notice that's automatically changed the height value for us. I'm going to keep auto scale Z checked, as I want all the heights to be scaled in proportion, and I'm just going to go ahead and click apply, like so, and then I can close that form. So now that we have resized our image, I'm going to go ahead and take a close look at the 3D relief that the software has created for us. So if I just twiddle that around and just zoom in a little, you'll notice that actually all the lighter areas of the image are actually taller than those that are darker in the image, if you compare that to the 2D grayscale that we have in the 2D view here. Now to create a lithophane, we actually need it to be the opposite way around that we have it currently. We need the darker areas to be taller, so that when we machine it and backlight it, those areas restrict more light passing through it, which in turn will give us darker shades when light passes through the material. So what we need to do, if I just reset that view in Z, is we actually need to make this image negative. At the moment you'll see that if I just hover that over, the combine mode is set to add, and we just need to change that to subtract. So there's many ways that we can do this. We can go into the component properties form, or we can actually just right click on the actual component itself, go to combine mode and simply set this to subtract. And you notice that that has now inverted the colors of the 2D grayscale, and in the 3D view now you'll see that this has changed also. Now you may notice in the 3D view that the colors look as if something is masking over them, and you may be wondering why we have blotchy areas of dark red versus light red? Well, this is because we are now viewing our model through the modelling plane itself. The modelling plane is the base where all models are created from. It has 0 thickness, and it's just a reference point to the models we create. We can see the modelling plane now because when we're creating negative models, we create the model below the modelling plane, hence why it appears to be of a translucent look, because we're looking through it. The dark red areas are those that have this equal height to the modelling plane, which is a height of 0. If you just look towards the bottom right, you'll see that the z value reads as 0, and if I go over to the light red areas, you'll notice that that starts to go below 0, like so. Now, having the modelling plane visible like this is handy when working with multiple components and when we're working with the likes of dished items, as we will be able to determine easily if something is higher or poking out of the dish itself. But as we're not working with those, we may wish to turn off the visibility of the modelling plane altogether. If you do wish to do this, you can simply do this by going to the View option on the toolbar and just going to uncheck the Draw Modelling Plane, and you'll notice that that has now disappeared and we have the full red selection colour. And now, if we just take another look at our 3D model now we have turned the combine mode to subtract, you'll notice that all the dark areas are now higher and raised compared to when they were previously actually lower, and you'll notice that the light areas of the image are now actually a lot lower. So basically, the light areas are going to let a lot more material through once we've actually machined this in some translucent material. So I'm just going to reset that value in Z. And now we're actually ready to go over and create some toolpaths. But first, we're going to go ahead and create a rectangle which we're going to use as our toolpath boundary. So what we're going to do is going to go into the Drawing tab. Going to go to the Draw Rectangle tool. Let's click on that. We're going to have the anchor point from the center, and our center is going to be x0, y0. Like so. So that's going to be bang in the centre of our work area, like so. And we're going to create the corner type as square, and just going to give that a width of 6 inches and a height of 8 inches. Then just simply hit create, like so. And you'll notice that that's now created that in the 2D view for us. So if we go over to the Toolpaths tab, we do this by clicking on this icon here, and that'll close the Drawing tab. And the first thing that we should always do is make sure that we check the material setup, as we can position our model within the material. So let's go to press the set button and just go over some details. So the thickness of the material is 1/4 inch, as I'm going to imagine that we're going to be using Corian of 1/4 inch. I'm going to change the XY datum position, as this allows me to locate where I want to start this toolpath from on the material more easily. So I'm just going to change that to the lower left. I'm going to keep the Z0 at the material surface, and I'm going to adjust the model position in material. So I'm going to place the model at around about 4/100ths of an inch, just below the actual bottom surface of the material. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to select a gap below the model. I'm just going to type in 0.04 in there. So you'll notice that the block in this visual material block here, our model actually is indicated by the light brown colour. You'll notice that that has now moved down, and you'll notice that we've got a representation of the material that we've left below our model, which is going to be enough material to allow light through but also stay sturdy in this. And then we've also got all of this material above, which we're going to obviously need to get rid of. Now what we're going to do is we're going to utilize a roughing toolpath to work through that material to then get through to the material where we actually want to start creating our lithophane. So before we go ahead and do that, I'm just going to go ahead and just quickly go over the rapid Z gaps above material. So 0.2 for both clearance and the plunge is fine. The home start position is x0, y0, and the gap above the model is 1/2 inch. Now we can, if we wish, just lower that down as well. Let's put 0.2 in there, and then press OK, like so. And the first toolpath that we're going to create is our roughing toolpath. So I'm just going to come up to this icon here and then click on that, and that will then open the rough machining toolpath form. Now if we don't have a tool changer, we can basically try and cut down the amount of tool changes that we need to do by using the same tool to rough and finish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select from my tool database an 1/8 inch ball nose. So I'm just going to go ahead and select the 1/8 inch ball nose like so and press OK. Now what you may have noticed while in the parameters is if we just go to the edit options there, you notice that the step over is 8%. Now The reason why the ball noses tend to come with a lower step over is because they are normally finishing tools. But for this actually, I want to just try and hog away as much material as possible. So we may want to put something more like 40%, like what we would do if we were using an 1/8 inch end mill, for instance. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this in the edit options, as I don't want to save this for future use. I just want it for this toolpath. So I'm just going to go ahead and press OK once I've done that. And then we can move down to the machine limit boundary. Now at the moment you can see I've got it as selected vectors. And all I need to do is simply come to the 2D view and select our vector like so. And you'll notice that it's selected by it being highlighted in the dashed pink. So once we've done that, we can go ahead and set our machining allowance. So the machining allowance, I'm just going to put a very thin amount on here. So I'm just going to put 2/100ths of an inch, so 0.02. And then we come down to the roughing strategy. Now we've got the choice of a Z level or a 3D raster. Now the Z level is more like a 2D pocket. It's going to pocket down in the areas where it needs to per pass level that you set on your tool, whereas a 3D raster is pretty much like a finishing toolpath where it's going to follow and drive the tool down to the maximum depth until we actually reach the 2/100ths of an inch above the actual model itself that we're going to actually cut. So I'm going to keep this as a Z level roughing strategy. I'm going to raster in the X axis and we're going to go ahead and profile around last, like so. So I'm just going to leave that like so, and we're just going to go ahead and give this a name. So I'm just going to call this 3D roughing lithophane and press calculate, like so. And then this should bring us straight into the preview toolpath form, where we can go ahead if we wish and just match the same colour as we've chosen in our appearance for our preview colour. So I'm just going to go ahead and just choose light grey like so. And then all we need to do with the actual toolpath selected is preview it. So just press preview. You'll notice that that'll preview that toolpath for us. Now if we take a closer look at this, you'll notice that we've got tool markings left from using a ball nose tool and a 40% step over, but that's nothing to worry about, as all this material that you can see that's left on at the moment, including the tool markings left on by the ball nose, is actually going to be cleared up when we create our finishing toolpath. So let's go ahead now and create our finishing toolpath. So I'm just going to go ahead and close the preview toolpath form. And we're going to go ahead and select the finishing toolpath. So let's click on this icon here. And again, from the tool database, what we're going to do is going to go ahead and choose that exact same tool, the ball nose of 1/8 an inch, like so, and press OK. And you'll notice that the step over is at 8%, which is what actually it was before we edited the parameters. For the machine limit boundary, we're going to keep that the same as we had for the roughing strategy. So we're going to have the selected vectors. And as you can see, we've still got our rectangle selected. Then we can move down to the area machine strategy. Now we have two options. We have the offset strategy, and that will go in a spiral from the center outwards. Or we have the rastering strategy, where we actually get to choose an angle where it's going to go back and forth from, as this icon indicates here. Now the angle, 0 degrees, will go from left to right or right to left in a horizontal fashion. If we chose 90 degrees, it will go in a vertical fashion. If we did 45 degrees, it will go at an angle. Now, as we have quite a lot of vertical and horizontal parts of the actual model itself, it'd be good to use an angle which doesn't conflict. So either 0 or 90, we don't obviously want to use those. So we may want to use a 45 degree type angle. Now we can go either 315 degrees, which would go from this side upwards, like so, or we can go 45 degrees, which go from the bottom right hand corner all the way up to the corresponding opposite corner. So what I'm going to do, as I feel it may be better to start from this side, is I'm just going to specify 45 degrees in there, and then just simply come down and give this a name. So 3D finish, lithophane, and we can add, if we wish, just some information about the tool that we're going to use. So just press calculate, like so. And this will take a little time to calculate, as it's going to be using a lot smaller step over than the roughing toolpath. And then once we've done that, we can go ahead and preview the toolpath. So with it selected again, just go ahead and press preview. And you'll notice that'll start from the bottom right as we suggested. and it'll go all the way to the top left hand corner, and then we can go ahead and take a look in more detail. So I'm just going to go ahead and zoom in a little, like so. Just take a look around. Now you can see that we do have a little bit of tool marking around some of the areas, as you can see, where the tool hasn't been able to fit all the way in. And the best way to actually get an idea of how this is actually going to turn out when we're doing lithophanes is actually to create a component from the toolpath preview itself, and we can actually then look in the 2D view and see what that would actually give us. So what we're going to do is going to do exactly that. So how we do that is we go to Model, then we go to Create Component From, and then here you'll see at the bottom of this list will be Create Component from Toolpath Preview. So select that, and then all we do is close the Toolpath Preview down. We go back over to the Drawing tab and go into the Modeling tab here, and you'll notice that that has now created us a component called Toolpath Preview. So if we just uncheck that, you'll notice that this is exactly what we had from the preview. And you'll see again all the tool markings that we were mentioning. Just reset that in Z. And you'll notice that we've also got a 2D grayscale preview, but you'll notice at the moment that it's still in the opposite colours that we'd actually be able to use to see if it was any good or not. So what we need to do actually is make this the reverse again. So we need to go ahead and subtract this model, like so. And now you'll see this is the type of image that we'll get if we backlit this off the machine. So we can use this to some degree to get a level or an idea of the level of detail that we're going to be able to create and recreate on the machine. And if we zoom in a little, you'll be able to get a better idea of the level of detail that we're going to be able to actually recreate. You'll notice that when we have zoomed in, it is a little bit blurry. Now this is going to be down to the fact that we are using an 1/8 inch bullnose, and the very minute detail isn't going to be able to be picked up or depicted with that 1/8 inch tool. So you'll notice that the detail around the eyes or around the teeth area or even on the actual waistcoat itself, you'll notice that detailing is quite hazy. And that's because obviously the 1/8 inch bullnose isn't able to get in and provide that amount of level of detail. Now how we'd actually rectify this is we'd need to use basically a smaller tool. So we can go ahead and do that just to show you the comparison. So if we just uncheck the visibility of the toolpath preview and then recheck the visibility of the Charlie Chaplin component, go back over to the toolpath tab, and what we're going to do is simply just going to recreate the same toolpath but with a smaller tool. So I'm just going to go ahead and right click that toolpath and press duplicate, then double click on it to enter that toolpath. So what I'm going to do from the tool database is I'm going to select a tool which is smaller. So I'm going to go ahead and rather than select an 1/8, I'm going to go ahead and select 1/16 inch bullnose, like so. Now if you don't have one of those, you can simply press copy on the 1/8 inch bullnose and then just enter the parameters as you can see here. Now obviously if you are going to be cutting this, you'd need to put in the speeds and feeds and cutting parameters that obviously match the tool and machine that you have. I'm just going to go ahead and press OK, and everything else should remain the same apart from the fact that we're using a smaller tool. So I'm just going to go ahead and just rechange this to 0.0625 BN and press calculate. And then what we're going to do is we're going to be able to preview this preview on top of the 1/8 inch bullnose toolpath which we used, and then we'll be able to see the difference in action. And if I just quickly uncheck the visibility of this toolpath, you'll see that we've still got the 1/8 inch bullnose toolpath preview, and if I just run this preview on top of that preview, you'll see that the detail that's now being created by using that smaller tool. So if I do that, you'll see that it all comes to life, and the detail in the waist jacket and around the facial areas, you'll notice that that has dramatically changed. So now when we create a component from the toolpath preview, we should be able to see in the 2D view some dramatic changes. So let's go ahead and just go ahead and create that. Just going to go to create component from toolpath preview, and then I'm going to close this down and go back over to the modeling tab like so, and you'll see that's now created the new toolpath preview. Again, just uncheck the visibility of our original component, select the new toolpath preview, and we're going to just change that combine mode to subtract. And now when we zoom in, we should notice that we've got a bit more detail in the image. So you'll notice straight away that there's a lot more clarity in the facial features, including the teeth, and also if we scroll down, you'll also notice that there's a lot more detailing in the waist jacket and other details around Charlie Chaplin himself. So what we have to weigh up really is whether it's obviously going to be worth the time and effort to obviously have multiple tool changes and also to recreate that extra detail, as running a toolpath with half of the actual tool diameter itself is going to take, if not more than twice as long as running the 1/8 inch bullnose toolpath. The only things left to do now would be to actually save out our toolpaths, and if we don't have a tool changer, then we won't be able to output these all as one toolpath, but we'd simply go ahead and save out the individual toolpaths that we needed by selecting them and then saving them out with your post-processor for your CNC machine. Once we've done that, it's always a good idea to save our project as well in case we need to come back and edit any of the toolpath parameters or even the image that we actually want to toolpath. So I'm just going to go ahead and press File and Save, and in my folder I'm just going to go ahead and call that Lithophane Creation 3D _ toolpaths, like so. And that's it for this tutorial, so thank you very much for watching.